Here we go. In fact, yes, Marco, thank you very much. These few minutes discussions were first of all, were very encouraging because we can see that the general understanding of what is a CIP is growing, and in all countries. So that is not only Bangladesh that started a little bit advantage because they already have the experience of a country investment plan, even though in another sector, but also from the other countries. And yes, in fact, monitoring is one of the elements that makes a process more visible, makes the process of implementing the country investment plan more visible. In today's presentation, as Marco anticipated, I'm going to go briefly through three aspects. First of all, I would like to recap. I take a little bit of your time to recap on some of the main concepts on result-based management, because I'm going to use these concepts during the presentation, and I think Alberto did a very, very precise and wonderful presentation on the first day. I think it's always, I always enjoy his presentations. It's always useful to have the key concepts in mind, and I feel somehow it is good to hear them again, just to fix them better. Second aspect is how to monitor a country investment plan. And so we will look into what was the actual process to monitor the country investment plan in Bangladesh for food security. But that, of course, as we said, applies to other possible investment plans, as far as we keep in mind that we are working in a multi-dimensional or multi-sectoral context. Third point, I will show you, and this is going to be the lightest part of the presentation, so I left it at the end when the attention goes down, some of the results of the country investment plan monitoring in Bangladesh, so that you can see what can be the use of a monitoring report. You will use the same not score, but the yellow and red cards, so that I manage my time. You tell me. Half an hour, I think, is very much okay. Okay, so first of all, some of the key concepts. Why do we do monitoring and evaluation? I think it's useful to understand that, I'm going to read that one, but let's spend a little bit of time to reflect on that. Why do we do it? Why? If we do not measure results, we cannot tell what is the difference from success and failure. If we don't measure, we don't know. If we cannot see what is the success, we cannot reward it. If we cannot reward success, that means that in our process, somehow we are rewarding probably the failure, because we don't know what is going well and what is going not so well. And if we cannot see the success, we cannot learn from it. Do you remember the cycle, result-based management cycle? After planning, we have the implementation and then the evaluation. And through the evaluation, we learn. So if we don't monitor, if we don't know what we're doing, we're probably evaluating something that does not reflect the reality. Also, on the other hand, if we don't recognize failure, we cannot correct it. So again, the learning element is very much important. Not only for us as professionals, but also for the institution, for a government. If a government does not see where things can be done better, then we probably continue working with the government, doing things business as usual, and maybe doing same mistakes, or maybe just missing the opportunity to do things better. Of course, also, if we cannot demonstrate the results, if we can demonstrate the result, we can also win public support. That means when we show the broader audience, the people, stakeholders, what we are doing, they will appreciate the fact that we are showing what is happening, and they will feel more part of the process. Maybe at the beginning they will protest a little bit because they will say, civil society, for instance, I'm thinking, they will say, you're not doing enough. But at least you establish a dialogue based on the evidence. And this is also very, very important, basing the dialogue on the evidence. And monitoring leads you exactly there. Okay, So again, I guess you know what a result chain is. So we're talking about activities, outputs, outcomes, and impact. So here I just prepared a slide that goes through these four main elements, and I want to do, I'll take this chance to make a parallel with a possible structure, result structure of a country investment plan. When we talk about activities in a project context, we talk about tasks that need to be carried out in order to achieve certain results. For all these activities, we want to have an indicator. We want to measure what we are doing, right? In the parallel with the country investment plan could be all the projects that are implemented in a certain area. So as Prabhu was saying earlier, maybe in our matrix, result matrix of a country investment plan, we imagine to have at activities level all the projects, the 20, 30 projects, or they can be even more or less, depending on the scope of the projects. The outputs, usually I tend to involve you. If you don't mind, I'll ask you to complement or to correct me if I'm wrong. How can we define outputs in the result chain? If someone dares, otherwise I'll just tell you, so don't feel shy. Outputs usually are considered as products or services that are provided as fruit of activities. And in fact, we have a clear link between activities and output. An activity leads to an output, which is a product or a service. If our activity is to train producers in an innovative agricultural technology, our output is number of producers that receive the training. Is this a result already for us? Yes and no. Yeah, I've seen different faces. It is a result in the sense that it is a result of our activity, but it's not yet the final result. If we train people, can we say that we are satisfied with our job, or we should measure something else? We should measure something else, I think we all agree, because we don't want only to know if people participated in a training, we also want to know if people are using the skills or the knowledge that they gain in a training. And that means that if they are using them, they are changing their behavior. And if they're changing their behavior, there is a good chance that some change in the society will happen. So that's why, that's how we arrive at outcomes that you now know that can be explained as behavioral changes from people's behavior, like producers that utilize a new technology, agricultural technology or tree plantation technologies, or simply community-driven development planning or issues of this kind, or is also institutional changes. So institutions that change their behaviors. As a result of the outcomes, we could say we are satisfied now because we are measuring changes in the behavior of people as a result of the actions of our interventions. But we want to arrive at some impact of the story. So what is the longer term effect or result of the intervention? And when we talk about goal or impact, we talk about the change in people's lives, which means increased nutrition, increased quality of the air, if we are in the context of environment, or increased carbon sinking, depending really on the on the objective, where on the structure or on the result structure in which we want to work in the scope. So that is, I think we were all familiar. I think it is now time to pass at something a little bit more complex, which is, and this is something we've already seen, the structure of a result chain. How can it be in an investment plan structure? As we said, the activities could represent the investment projects. We find them on the right side of the chart. We have a list of investment projects. They all contribute to one or more outputs, right? many activities contribute to a reduced number of outputs because we are narrowing down. Then all these outputs contribute to the outcomes, which in turn contribute to the impact of an investment plan. So here, essentially, we have the same structure that we had before, but turned 90 degrees counterclockwise. So we had it vertical from impact to activities, and here we have from impact on the left to interventions on the right. What is essential to know is that everything is linked, everything is related, and is linked in this in the structure of a counter-investment plan. Also, it is important to remember that we measure all results through smart indicators. Does someone want to dare to describe what a smart indicator is? I can give you a tip. You can also read on the bottom line of the slide, because it is mentioned there. We have the acronym of SMART, which means specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. It means, Alberto was saying, it's not easy to identify SMART indicators, but it is an exercise that is very, very much needed when we want to have a precise information, specific, and relevant to what we do, and also efficient in terms of time and cost for collecting the information. And, but it is very much needed. This is just, again, as a sort of a background. Now, result-oriented planning means starting from, and here I come back to a concept that we discussed already on Monday. Planning is top-down in the sense that we start from the overarching objective, and then we sort of narrow down the lens into something more and more specific. So at the beginning we have top-down, the top objective, the umbrella objective, which is the overall objective. And then we structure this, the intervention structure into different components and different outputs, and then we identify what can be the projects or the investments that contribute to achieve all these outputs. We associate these, all these results to a budget. And this is how we proceed for, with a result-based budget. A result-oriented budget describes how many resources in terms of people or money are required in order to achieve any given result. So, and this is again important to be kept in mind while we design our investment plan. Every step, every, let's say, result of the investment plan, of the structure of the investment plan, need to have a clearly identifiable budget. We will see that for the case of Bangladesh in the third part of the session. Now, why? Now, the center of monitoring. We know that we want to monitor what are the physical or the substantial results, which are the progress towards expected results. It means we want to see, in the example of the environment that we had before, or in the example of the training that I was giving before, we want to see how many people are trained, how many people are trained, how many people are using the training, the skills and knowledge that they get. But also we want to measure the financial dimension of that. How much did it cost us to achieve that? We had in the previous slide stated the principle that we need to budget according to what are the results that we expect to achieve. But what happens, and that is at planning stage. At planning stage, we may be wrong. We may not see all aspects because we are simplifying in a budget. A budget is just a provisional expenses. So in reality, so in monitoring, we want to cross-check and see, okay, we wanted to achieve that much. So for instance, 500 kilometers of rural roads. How much did we spend? Did we spend what we planned? Did we spend more? So it means we've not been efficient. Did we spend less? So it means that we can reallocate the budget into some other activities. Looking at the two dimensions, what I want to stress with this slide is that looking at the two dimensions give us extremely valuable opportunities to redress the strategy of intervention. Because if we have saving on one side, we can reallocate them on another area that is perhaps lagging behind. in this sense, let's remind also something. A country investment plan, the country investment plan on food security in Bangladesh was considered a living document. Living document means that every year it can be put into discussion. We can rediscuss the priorities. And the monitoring exercise is the moment in which we realize what went well and what could have been improved. And therefore, what can be the changes that we carry out. Now, this is just to show you something. You have it in the package that you receive on the first day. It is the result framework at goal or impact level of the country investment plan. As you can see, we have the three components on the top left, right? And these three components have a statement. A statement is the description of what we want to achieve, is the description of the result. And we are at outcome level. So if we remember the first slide we saw, we want to measure what are the behavioral or institutional changes. So I'll just read one. For food availability, we want to have adequate and stable supply of safe and nutritious food is achieved. It means that we have stable food availability in the country. And we want to measure it through several indicators, smart indicators, let's remember, which are these four indicators. For each indicator, I'll not go into details of this table, but I just want to show you the structure. For each indicator, we have a baseline value, which is the most recent information available. Usually for baseline, we select the year in which we are designing the plan or the year before, or if the indicator, if the information is not collected on a yearly basis, we can take the last information available. For instance, some household income expenditure surveys are not collected on a yearly basis, they are collected every five years. So we need to rely on the most recent one, which may be 2 or 3 years, dated 2 or 3 years ago. And then for every indicator, we set a target. And we just for the record, for the future record and for monitoring purposes, we also indicate what is the verification source. Okay. Yeah.
Just one short advice. Maybe when you present this thing, maybe if you just put this to our context.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
maybe with some example, then it will be very easy to understand what
yeah. Yeah. That is that is coming. Very good. So essentially, this is of course this is what is still in the investment plan of food security. But if we turn it into and it's just to show you the structure of the results framework. But if we turn it into the environment or climate change context, what we would have would be indicators, for instance, of again, as we said, capacity to the forest coverage, for instance, as a result of reduced deforestation. And we would have as a baseline the square kilometers of forest in a baseline year, in a base year, and we would have a target for the end of the investment, which would be an increase of 20%. I don't know, it really depends on the context. So yes, well taken, Prabhu, sure. Again, as I said, we make a parallel between the results and the budget. Now, how to monitor? In this case, I would need to go into a Bangladeshi context a little bit more in detail, because essentially what I'll show here is the rationale. What are the 5 questions of a journalist? I'm not a journalist, but we know what are the 5 questions of a journalist. Do you want to suggest them? Why, what, how, who, and when? Exactly. So I will show you in general what are the principles, but also what is the specific context of Bangladesh. I would then ask you to keep in mind that, and keep in mind especially the different, the diverse institutions that are involved. So essentially, monitoring. When? We do it on a regular basis. For the case of Bangladesh, it is on a yearly basis, because we're talking about a structure of some 12 outcome indicators plus some 100 output indicators. So it is a major effort. And we talk about something like 490 projects. So we cannot do it on a monthly basis. It would just mean replicating what the government is already doing with the planning ministry or IMED for the case of Bangladesh. But regularly. Let's decide how regularly, what is the schedule, and then let's stick to that, because it helps also the people to know that the report is coming and to make use of the report. Who? And then relevant stakeholders. We will see that in a minute. What? Of course, as we said, we progress results. We monitor progress toward results, but also the financial aspects. How much are we spending? And how many additional resources are we mobilizing? Why? Essentially, because we want to achieve better results in a given area. This is in line with what we discussed. Why do we need an additional plan? Because we want to do things in that specific aspect in a more qualitative way, with higher quality, with more focus. And how? Let us see. This is all part of the learning process that the result-based management cycle conducts us to do. So why? Again, we want to measure progress on a yearly basis towards the objective. We analyze the financial disbursement versus the physical progress, and with that we have an idea of what is the cost effectiveness of our interventions. We want to draw, further to that, lessons for the policymakers for a better targeted and tailored interventions and investments. And we want also to assess what are the potentials for new investments. For instance, additional resources coming from donors or from private sector or from the government. In the case of Bangladesh, this here starts a little bit the part a little bit more complex. This shows the several institutions that were involved in the monitoring of the counter-investment plan. As you may remember from the first day, we said that the counter-investment plan in Bangladesh for food security was the fruit of two different was the fruit of the national food policy, but also of the counter-investment plan. So the monitoring report needed to merge the two processes for monitoring, and these are the two main lines that you have on the screen. A parallel, I think that in many countries on environment, climate change, and forest, you have several documents. So in this case also, it will be required to make a parallel between the different documents and to make and to try to identify areas, common areas, and parallel in sense what are the common objectives and what are the common possible intervention areas. Essentially, and this again is to show you the complexity of the situation because of the multi-sectorality. In Bangladesh, for food security, 13 ministries were involved, 57 government agencies, and 3 key institutions. I think these institutions were already mentioned in the days before. The finance division, and also in our discussion with Tanzania, finance division, then the ministry, in the Ministry of Finance for the responsibility they have in budget, in allocating budget, and also the monitoring and evaluation division, which is also part of the Ministry of Planning. Development partners as well were involved to participate in national committees, with not with a formal participation in a government process, but at least consulted in order to have them as part of the process. So the structure was essentially composed of 4 type of groups, 4 working groups. At the bottom we have thematic teams. These are multi-ministerial, cross-ministerial officials that work in different areas and that report information on the progress towards the result, that bring in the assembly the results of different indicators. They then report to the food policy working group, which is composed essentially of senior managers of different line ministries, which then report to the national committee, which is composed of ministries, with secretaries, and also includes members of the civil society and members of the donors, and then to report to the cabinet level, so to the food planning and monitoring committee. All this flow of information, I mean, it's essentially a flow of clearances from the production of information at thematic team level up to the clearance at national level, is supported by what you see on the left, the FPMU, Food Planning and Monitoring Unit, which is a unit specifically dedicated, for the case of the Bangladesh Counter-Investment Plan on Food Security, specifically dedicated to monitoring food security investments. In case of other sectors, the advice in general is to identify what is a technical unit that can help coordinating the process and can help following the flow of information that is described on the right. This slide just describes a little bit more. You will have the handout, so no worries if you lose something now. But this slide describes a little bit more what is the content, what are the compositions of the different of the 4 different groups that intervene in monitoring the counter-investment plan. As I said, thematic teams are composed by experts and officials, while the food policy working group, the second from the bottom, coordinates the work and is composed of senior managers. The national committee is composed of, at cabinet level, and then the food planning monitoring committee again is at cabinet level and the highest of the different ones. Then how are we going to proceed? For the case of Bangladesh, on food security, every year the Food Planning Monitoring Unit, FPMU, produces a roadmap that describes in detail how the different actors should work and how the different thematic teams should gather, how frequently, and how they should provide and produce the monitoring. So essentially, they produce a work plan that lasts, as you can see, and this is the message I want to give you, the process of monitoring lasts a long time, because there is need for time to collect all information, to clear all information collected, clean the databases, both for the results and for the financial part, and then to validate, to analyze, because once we have the data, we want to analyze what is the content, and then to clear the content and the messages at different level in order to arrive at a final approval, which is the bottom line you find there. This is a simplified version. Actually, the real version is this one. Is a little bit more fragmented, in a sense. This is not a roadmap for drawing an investment plan. This is just the roadmap for preparing the monitoring report. Anyway, you will have this in your handouts at the end of the course. Now, with this image, I want to show you something else, which is the role that the different thematic team members, you remember thematic teams are the experts and officials from different government agencies, responsible to collect information on different indicators. Here on the screen we have the outcome indicators, outcome level indicators. And as you can see, every outcome level indicator has associated one name. And this name is a person, of course, that belongs to one or another ministry or agency, and it's responsible to deliver the information on that indicator on time, in order for the unit responsible for monitoring to analyze the data. Same thing happens for the output level indicators, but the difference between these two slides I just shown is that the first was exhaustive. These 12 are is the exhaustive, this 14, sorry, is the exhaustive list of outcome indicators, while here, as I said, we have a list of output indicators that goes probably up to 100. So quite a number. They are not the same. And of course, some people may have responsibility for different indicators, so the burden may be high. For the financial progress, the process is similar, but we have, in an investment plan, we have different sources of funding. We have the government, but we also have donors. So we need to have a process that goes in parallel. On one side, we collect information on what the government projects, how the government projects are delivering the funds, to what extent they are delivering according to their plan. And on the other side, we also want to monitor how the financial gaps are filled. So to what extent the government is providing money for the identified financial gap, which is one of the objectives also of a counter-investment plan, to identify areas that require further funding. On the other side, so the parallel process is to check what is the donor commitment. Are they providing the money that they pledged? Are they disbursing the money that they are for the projects they are funding? Okay. So, of course, all of these steps are composed of sub-steps. I just don't need to go too much in details, but essentially we want to what I want to show with this slide is just that we need to very carefully every year monitor the status of the projects, their budget, the expenditures, and and what is the financial gap, and to what extent we are filling the financial gap. The same thing will be done for donor-funded projects. Then, last part of the presentation is about what are the results of monitoring. So essentially, here I brought my 3 copies, let's say, of the 3 monitoring report, 2012, 2013, and 2014. As you see, the monitoring report is thicker than the counter-investment plan itself. That also, for a physical reason, every year the projects that are listed at the bottom part of the annex are increasing. Every year there is an increasing part of projects. There are additional projects that come into the picture simply because every year the pipeline flags, the financial gap flags the areas in which it is important to invest. So government and donors feel interested to invest in an investment plan. You know that we have 12 programs. Again, I slightly changed this slide to say every program is provided with a budget. And this is the actual budget, the actual figures from the most recent picture from the monitoring report of a counter-investment plan. And we're talking about $10 billion overall. We also know what is, and this is the second column, the financial gap. For some of these projects, for some of the programs, sorry, the financial gap is quite high. It can arrive at still at 50% of the total budget or even up. Look at the first one, sustainable and diversified agriculture through integrated research and extension. The gap is $550 million and the total budget is 687. That means that there is only 130, 140 which is already funded. It means a lot has yet to be funded. Okay, it went too fast. But maybe we can take this. Quick results, quick display of what can be monitoring substantial results. We said we had the indicators at outcome level, at goal level that you have on the left. We had the baseline, and then we can monitor, and this is a powerful tool, we can monitor what are the progress in the recent years. And as far as we go ahead with the monitoring, as far as we conduct monitoring exercises, we can compare a time series that is enriching. And that is extremely powerful, again, because we can show policymakers, civil society, stakeholders, that there are progress, or that there are not enough progress and we need to invest more. Just one case for agriculture GDP growth rate, the target, as you can see, is 4.4% per year, but what was achieved in the last monitoring, in the last year monitored is only 2.17. That means that it is lagging behind. Again, okay, I will skip these specific ones because I want to show you how we can interpret the financial progress. As I showed the result, I want to show the financial one. Here we have 4 bars that represent the budget of the CIP at 4 stages. The first on the left is in 2011 at design stage. We had a budget of $7.8 billion, of which 2.9 were funded and 5 was the financial gap. Now look at the last bar on the right, 2014. We have a funded part which is 7.9, which means that in the course of the years it was possible to fund the entire financial gap, to fill the entire financial gap. Of course, during the course of the year, new idea comes, new needs comes in the picture, so the gap is still there. Still this 4.1 billion, which is the top part of the right side column. The gap is still there, but after 4 years, the entire CIP budget was funded. So this is important. There are many considerations that we can draw from this table, and also from this one, which is let's say, which is just fragmented, fragmenting the information regarding the CIP budget. We have in darker green, so the bottom part, what is the funded part, funded by development partners, donors. Then we have the second block in a bit slightly lighter green, is what is funded by government. And we can see that both the donors are increasing their contribution and the government as well is increasing the contribution. And one lesson we can draw is that the government is increasing the contribution more than what the donors are doing. For the financial part, the element important to identify here, to identify here, is that the financial gap is divided into, I just need a couple of minutes, thank you. In the top high priority gap and the lower priority gap. And we can see that the lower priority gap, which is the third block, is also reducing from 3.4 million to 2.9 billion. Okay. Now, again, this is just a different way to see the same figures. Instead of bars, we have cakes. Depending on your taste, you can look at one or the other. But essentially shows the same progress. The blue part represents what was funded, and then let's look at what we have now, 5 billion. We can analyze also other elements. As I said, we can analyze also the budget execution performance. So to what extent we are spending what we were supposed to spend. It is the bottom line. The third indicator. It measures every year how much are we spending of what we plan to spend. If we are spending less, if the indicator shows less than 100%, it means that we are doing less than what we should do. So it means that the process of delivery needs to be improved. And probably that shows that we need institutional capacity development to the ministries in order to disburse faster, in order to achieve the objective faster. This is just the breakdown. And final one, the findings of the monitoring of the financial part, is that the Bangladesh has showed significant results, but there are some areas that lag behind. Some projects are not, some of the investment areas are not yet up to the mark. And needs to have more attention. Also, in terms of the donor, it's possible to identify where are the donors investing, in which areas, and there may be, you may happen to realized that there are new donors coming into the picture, like China in this case, that is focusing mainly on fertilizers, while other donors, you can also identify who is investing in the areas that are lagging behind. For instance, nutrition, which is underfunded, is covered mainly by European Union and DFID. So you can flag to other donors that they need to invest as well. Recommendations are that policymakers need to keep their attention high on how the government projects are implemented, and that there is a need to reduce the that there is a need to increase the capacities for delivery. I think I'm done. I'm sorry I was a couple of minutes late.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Tommaso.